There is a thing in our town people do not talk about except soft and sideways. It cuts through the trees behind the cemetery, and it is older than the cemetery and older than the town. My mother told me about it when I was a boy, and she did not tell it to me like a myth. She told it with the same plainness she used to tell me not to run with the kitchen knife. She had me shelling peas, and the sun was laying gold in the plates of the window, and there was a fly the color of oil in the glass. She said, "There is a path in Barrow Wood you do not leave once you enter. You go in on the dusty side, and you come out the other, and you will be better or made right. Folks say it's mercy. It ain't mercy. It's an exchange. Listen to me. If you ever do walk it, keep to the path, and do not answer the cries for help. They will call your name. They will say they know you. They will ask for water or hand. They will be children. They will be old. They will be your own blood if something wants to put a hook in you. You do not answer." "What happens if you do?" I said. "You don't come out," she said. "You'll join them, and the path will take its due." I didn't believe her then. Not with all of me. But we had men who had put boot to that path and come back with their hair turned stark and their eyes gone flat. I watched them in the diner with their eggs cooling and their hands quiet, as if listening to something inside. Men who used to be loud and red-faced at ball games, now speaking low with care. One of them was a fella named Eli Creed, who ran cable and used to drink behind the feed store. He stopped after he walked it. I was 17 when I asked him, "What did you see out there?" He looked at me like you look at a dog sniffing a porcupine. He said, "You need to hear that rule again?" I heard it. "Say it then," he said. "Don't answer the cries. Keep to the path." He nodded. "Then, you know what you need to know." "Does it work?" "It works," he said. "I came back and I put down the bottle without a fight. But my head ain't quiet. The quiet was bought just like anything is bought." After a while, he said, "If you're going, put a stone in your mouth. Something you can taste. Something not found in those woods. Gives you something to know is real." "What did you do?" I said. "About the voices?" "You were asking me to remember." He pushed the eggs around. He did not look at the door or the window. "You keep walking. You keep your eyes on the ruts and the snakes and the nettle. You learn something terrible about yourself and you walk away." He slid a folded napkin over to me. When I opened it, there was a black, smooth pebble like glass. "I ain't going out there again," he said. "Take it." "I'm not going either," I said, and I knew I was lying. "Then throw it out a window and be done." Outside the diner, the street was a long zipper of heat shimmer down to the warehouse where they stored the salt for the winter. Beyond that was the line of the trees. You could look at those trees long enough, and they would begin to look like they were listening. My sister Ruth was sick. What she had was not the kind of thing they make movies about. It was cellular and quiet, and it took her hair first, and then her color, and then her strength. Medicine had its say, and it did good, and then it did less good, and then it did nothing. Some nights I heard her cough, and I knew my mother was awake in the other room listening to the cough same as me, and we were both measuring it and lying to ourselves about what the numbers were. "Mom," I said that evening, "tell me again." She would not look at me. "I told you when you were a boy." "Tell me now," I said. She stared at me for a long time before she spoke. The path is a straight line that does not stay straight. You will walk it and you will come to places that do not make sense. You will meet what you have already met or what you will meet later. It ain't memory. It ain't prophecy. It is hunger wearing them. There will be cries. Do not answer. That is the rule. There is only one rule. The rest is just agreeing to die a little for what you love. Ruth called from the bedroom. Her voice was no bigger than a sparrow in the chimney. "Cal?" "I'm here," I said. I went in and she smiled, and I thought of all the times she had laughed at something dumb on the television, and how the laugh used to fill the house, and now it couldn't even fill her own throat. I sat and told her about Ellie and the pebble. "You gonna go?" she said. "I don't know." "You're gonna go. I know you." "I will be back by Sunday dinner," I said. "You ever tell the truth?" "When I can look it in the face." She laughed anyway. I put the pebble in my mouth and tasted the cold stone. I would have gone into the woods then if there had been a door to them in her room. There are men in town who walk around with a weight tied to their ankles you can't see. When they sit, the invisible rope curls under their chairs. When they sleep, it wraps them like a lover who will not let go. They do not cry. That is not what the weight is for. It is to keep them from walking into the trees in the night. I went down to the warehouse and found a man named Doss, who used to haul salt and now did not haul anything. He stood on the loading dock and smoked and looked at the rails where the train came through once a week and on Sundays. "You walked it," I said. He flicked the cigarette away with disgust. "All you children do is ask." "I didn't ask you," I said. "I asked a question to the air. The air answered. I could walk on, or I could stop here and let the air talk." He smiled without showing his teeth. "You got a mouth on you, kid." "Got a pebble in it, too," I said. He looked at me in a new way. "If you go, don't try to be brave about anything. Brave is the same as pride, and pride is a simplification. Keep to the ruts. Do not answer." "Y'all keep saying that," I said. "We keep saying it because it ain't a suggestion." "What did you see? Tell me one thing." He was quiet a long time. Then there was a shift in him, like the earth turned under his boots. "I saw my mother sitting in a ditch with a tire iron in her hand and blood down her blouse. I saw her say, 'Son, please help me.' Except she'd been dead 8 years. I saw my own name written in maggots on a log. I saw a deer stand up on its hind legs and unbutton its own skin and step out of it like it was a garment. And it talked with the voice of my boy's old teacher. Yeah, that's what I saw. That's one thing," he said. "Do you sleep at night?" I said. He smiled again. "I sleep like a man who owes money to the night." In the evening, I went to the church because I did not know where else to go. I sat 3 rows back, and there was nobody there but an old woman reading a hymnal. The pastor came and sat beside me without saying hello, like he was a neighbor and we were watching rain. "Your mother called me," he said. I did not speak. "I cannot tell you not to go," he said. "I can only say there is a reason the path exists, and it is not grace. I think God allows the wilderness its contracts to teach men the cost of something. If you pay it, do not forget that it was paid. Do not become cruel on account of the cruelty you had to commit to get what you got. What if I don't get it? I said. Then you will be cruel anyway, and angry with nothing left to aim at. On the way home, I passed the edge of Barrow Wood. There is a feeling the trees give off when you stand there. You can taste the iron tang in the air, and it is like standing under high wires. I heard a voice. Not a voice exactly. A sound that could be a voice if you decided to put a word to it. It said my name. It said, Cal. Like it was a memory whispered by a dying man. I had never gone in. I went home. That night, Ruth slept and my mother did not. I stood in the kitchen with the fridge open, letting the cold light shine on me like a prayer booth. The pebble sat on the counter, black as judgment. I picked it up and I put it in my mouth, and I tasted what it meant to decide. I left before dawn. I told nobody because telling is like making a story of something that shouldn't be one. I walked down past the old rail spur and the warehouse, and along the fence where the lockers are all welded shut. I hit the line of the trees and went a few steps in, and stopped and turned around and looked at the town the way you look at your house before you move away. It is only then you see the angles of it. When you are at the mouth of Mercy Pass, you know it because the dirt is packed hard and nothing grows but patience. There ain't a sign. There ain't a gate. There is a length of ditch on both sides, deep enough to lose a man or a calf, and water standing black and still in places where the ground sinks. You step on and the world narrows. I put the pebble in my mouth and felt it click against my teeth. The first mile was nothing. It was droppings and leaves and a bird that was not there when you turned your head. It was a smell of old rust. The path ran between pines and oaks, and the light came down piebald. I kept my eyes on the ruts. You cannot walk with your head up. You will look and you will see, and if you see enough, you will think you are obligated. The first voice came as a cough and then a plea. "Water," it said. "Please." I did not look. I kept going. It came again, and then it said a name. "Angela." Then my own. "Cal." A shape began to pace me in the foliage. It had the speed of a dog and the weight of a man. A sweetness was in the air. The sweetness of rot. It passed ahead, and I saw it cross the path, and it was a man in flannel with half his head cleaved off. He looked at me and smiled, and his teeth were the color of corn. "Help," he said. "I can't," I said. He laughed like a cough and moved away. I went by a log as big as a Buick, and the log was hollow, and the hollow had eyes in it. "Please," a voice said. It was a child's voice, and then not a child's. "I cannot help you," I said. "Coward," the voice said. The path rose and dipped, and in one dip there were tracks of some heavy undulate. They were cloven and went off to the left where the ditch was swampy. I kept to the ruts. The path forked where it had never forked before, and I chose the way that was straight because the Mercy Path does not fork. I kept to what made sense. After that fork, the trees drew close enough that I could not stretch my arms and not touch bark on both sides. It was a tunnel. I walked through and something touched the back of my neck, light as string. "Cal?" it said. It was my mother's voice. I stopped. I did not turn. I said, "You told me not to answer." Her voice went dry, as if the throat it came from had caved in. "Help me," it said. The sound of fingernails, the whisper of a dress. I took one step. I took another. I kept walking, and I took my mother's voice into my mouth and broke it like communion and swallowed it with a taste of stone. I came to a clearing. It was small and round, and there were bones in it as white as moons. Deer bones and coon bones, and the thin, delicate lattice of birds. Lying among them, a boot with the lace turned to vine, and a bottle with a message curled inside it. The bottle was old and had air bubbles like trapped insects. I did not leave the path to reach it. I could see the writing. It said, "He would not let me die. He kept me hungry and he kept me singing. If you see this, do not stop." "Who?" I said out loud to no one. "Kept you?" Something laughed in the trees. It was not far. It moved when I did. The laugh was not funny. It was the kind of laugh a thing makes when it has found the way into your conflagration. It got cold at noon. I could watch the breath jet from my mouth like I was underwater, and each breath was a silver minnow. The sun was pale like milk. I walked. By the second mile, I stopped counting. The path is not straight in the way a road is straight. It is straight the way thoughts are when you're trying not to think them. The path climbs out of a drainage and into a stand of oaks so old their bark rolls like wave crests. There are shoes hanging in those trees. Hundreds. They thud against trunks in a wind that did not reach the ground. All sizes and ages. Baby shoes and work boots, and a red heel with a strap. The tongues hang and drip as if the shoes had been fed. Names were burned into some of them. I read one. The name was mine. I looked at the ground. I said, "No." From the ditch to my left came a woman's voice, like you hear in a hospital room at night when the nurse is on break. "I cannot lift him," she said. "He is too heavy. Please, help me." I walked, and the shoes whispered and the leather creaked. The laces were braided into a rope that went up into the canopy and vanished. I saw a figure there. It was a man. He was sitting in the crook of a branch like a child sits in a tree to watch fire engines. He was naked, except for a belt, and he was thin as bones. He had the smile of a saint and the eyes of a hungry dog. "All of them thought they could help," he said. "All of them thought they were better or worse. Comes to the same. You're a coin. You're just deciding what face is up." "Who are you?" I said. "Someone who answered," he said. "Do not answer." "If you know the rule, why are you saying hello?" I said. He shrugged. "I don't know the rule. I only know it for you." The path passed under him, and I did not look up anymore. At the edge of the orchard, there was a little creek. The water moved like it had secrets in it. Where the path crossed, the creek deepened into a black oval like an eye socket. The planks of the crossing were old and gray and slick. Something down there made a big ring like a heavy fish. Then, two little hands reached up and gripped the plank, and a head rose with hair glossy as oil. A girl. She coughed up water and made that sound children make when they have run too far. "Please," she said. She opened her eyes and they were full of silt. "My brother fell in. He's right here. Grab him, hurry." I could see nothing in the water but the black reflection of the trees. "I'm sorry," I said. "He's right there," she said. "His shoe." A sneaker rose like a lily pad, and in it, a foot. The foot was small and blue, and I had to force my eyes down to the planks again. "I can't," I said. The girl reached for my leg, and her fingers went through it like I was smoke. She was not all here. She put her face to the plank and bit down on it, and tore a mouthful of rotten wood and spat it into the creek. "You should have helped me," she said through the splinters. I crossed. When the boards ran out on the far bank, I stepped onto the dirt like surfacing from a bad dream, and my heart was a fish dying in a bucket. In the open beyond the creek stood a broken skiff and a rusted-out car with all its windows floured. A man sat on the hood. He wore a suit that used to be blue and a white shirt with 2 buttons missing. He had a hat on, and his hat had a cardinal feather in the band. He watched me and did not move otherwise. "You going to say something?" I called. He smiled slow. It made his cheeks rise like dough. "Did you make a deal?" he said. "You paid yet?" "I haven't paid," I said. "The pay is not always in coin," he said. "Sometimes you just carry something home where it keeps biting you." He looked past me. "Sometimes you leave something with me." "Who are you?" I said. "Whatever's left at the bottom of the jar," he said. "Keep walking." He raised his hand, and he was missing the fingers. In the dirt all around the car were little crescents, like prints of something that had too many legs. I walked. By afternoon, the light had gone thin and yellow as stale fat. The woods pressed close, and every place I put my foot down, there was something that wanted to take that foot. I stepped over an iron trap with its jaws sprung, and its teeth sharper than a saw. I saw the jawbones of something small hanging from a branch, tied to a piece of ribbon, and freckles of blood dried around it like a galaxy. I smelled vinegar and sour breath. Then the forest went quiet, in that way that things go quiet when a hawk passes over. I heard my name again, and I knew the voice, and I thought I would die from that. "Cal," Ruth said. "I'm in here." I stopped. "No, you're not." "I am," she said. "There's a hole in the earth and I fell in. I can't climb. Don't be scared. Just reach down. Just this once." I shut my eyes. I felt for the stone in my mouth and found it. I put my tongue on it, and it was the only cold thing left in the world. I said, "If you are Ruth, you will forgive me. And if you are not, I will join your choir." I opened my eyes and kept walking, and I cried like a fool in the trees. And the voice laughed with my little sister's laugh, and it was the worst sound I have ever heard. At dusk, I came to a lake. The path ran along its right-hand bank in a line as narrow as a knife. I could see minnows in that water, and they were not like any fish I had ever seen. They had little hands instead of fins. They waved. The trees on the shore were black spruce, and they leaned in like they were telling a secret. In the lake's skin, a long, rotted face rose like a moon. It moved to the shore and lay against the bank like something that had crawled a long way to die. It opened its mouth and spoke in 4 voices, one after another. A man, a woman, a boy, an old person whose words were wet. "I'll carry it," it said. "Give it to me. Give me your hurt. I'll take it into me. It's what I do." "What will you charge?" I said. It laughed. "The cost is paid by them that answer. All you have to do is keep walking." "What are they?" I said. "The ones in the ditch?" "Your shadows," it said. "Your saints. Your better angels who keep slipping. Anything that wants to live will reach out a hand, and if you take it, you are just an animal. This is where you see if there is anything else in you." It looked at me too long, and its lips slid down like fermenting fruit. "Or, if there ain't." I said nothing. I walked. I could feel it watching my back. And after a time, I could feel it not. Night in the mercy path is not a thought you think until it is time to think it. It came over the trees, and the path stayed somehow visible, like a woman in a white dress coming over a hill. The calls in the ditch did not stop. They never stop. They just get low and tireless like water under ice. "Help me," they said. "Give me your hand. Please, please, please." It went on until it did not make sense. And then it made sense again. And then it was a new kind of thing, like rain. When I tried to sleep, I could not. When I put my back against a tree and slid down a bit to rest the toes of my boots, I felt the bark pulse like a heart against me. Slow and patient and older than any I had sat with. I stood. I kept moving. I kept the stone in my mouth and my hand on the knife at my belt, though I knew it would not be a thing that needed cutting that would get me out of here. Under one leaning spruce was a shape I had to see. I did not leave the path. I crouched and leaned, and I saw with my head sideways. It was a man's suit on a hanger, like the surface of a dry cleaner's bag. Inside it was nothing but dark. Stitched on the lapel was a name tag. It said Cal. It was empty, and the emptiness had a smell like burnt sugar. The arms hung neat. The cuffs were clean. The little threads on the buttons were picked at, as if the suit had worn at itself. "Try me on," something said. "I'm wearing myself," I said. "It'll have to do." There was laughter again in the trees. It was nearer. "You think you're special," it said. "All of you come through thinking that." I did not answer. I walked. On the second day, I came to a long, low hill that was cut with holes. They were not animal holes. They were too round and too much like wells. The path ran along the base. In the holes were teeth. Not teeth in the way of bone and enamel. Teeth, as in something had shaped that soft red dirt into rings of bumps like gums. The holes were mouths. And as I walked, they spoke. "Cal," one mouth said with the voice of a teacher, "you have always had to tell yourself stories to live. Tell me how this ends." "Not you," I said. Another mouth spoke. "I'm your father," it said. "I'm laying under a truck in the yard. You are 16. You will hand me the wrong wrench, and I will say it will fit. If you're not a coward, you will have to decide right then whether to believe me or not." "You ain't my father," I said. Another mouth said, "If you step a foot off this path, I will stop being a mouth and be the thing that eats you." I walked on. They began to sing, low and ugly, and in a language that sounded like it had never had a book for it. It shook the dirt, and the belt of my pants rattled with the music, and the little flecks of stone in the soil trembled like lightning bugs. The singing hurt my teeth. Through it, I heard a song that was not a song. A sob. I almost stopped. I had to keep my feet moving, one in front of the other, in their tired old way. "Help me," someone sobbed. "Please. Me too." Another. "Help me. Help me." Then they hushed like a preacher had raised a hand. A voice came clear. It was Ruth again, and not again. It was her when she was 8, and her front teeth were missing. "Cal," she said, "don't be mad. I dropped your knife in the creek. Don't tell Mom." "I'm not coming," I said. "I can see your feet," she said from the ditch. "I can see your boots. You ain't walking away from me." I stood in the path with my breath running out and my head a riot. "You ain't her," I said at last. I took the pebble out long enough to spit and put it back because, without it, there is just spit, and spit is nothing against hunger. When the mouth's song ended, the air felt like the inside of a bell. I do not know when I slept, but I slept. I woke standing up with my hand on a branch and my thumb in a split that bled like the bark was skin. It had bled onto me. My palm looked kissed. "You're almost through," someone called. The voice was conversational. It had that cheer men get when they have decided a thing you have not. I turned my head, and there he stood, tall as a door and narrow as a switch. He wore a coat that might have been made of paper. He was clean. Too clean. He had no shadow. Or he did, and I could not see it with any sense. He smiled like a man about to sell you a truck. "You look good," he said. "Not many do at this stage." "Who are you?" I said. "Call me what suits. I walk both ways." "You can walk off the path?" I said. "It ain't off the path if I'm it," he said. "Tell me what Ruth will do when you come home. Tell me how she'll look at you." "She will smile," I said. "She will breathe. She will want pancakes and not eat a bite." He laughed. "That ain't a story, that's a photograph. You gotta know the rest. You will come home and you will be wrong. You will never be in the room again you are in. You will hear the ditch the way a man hears a clock no one else hears. She will be so grateful she'll be sick with it. But she'll smell it. What you did, she will not know what to do. I am not saying don't walk. I'm saying don't lie to yourself. Why?" "I know why," I said. "Do you?" he said. "Some men walk this for wives and sisters. Some walk it to see if they can. Leave mercy out of your mouth. It ain't in you. It ain't in me. It ain't in trees. What is bargain. And to bargain is to confess." He looked down at my hand. "You were about to mark yourself." I looked. I had the knife halfway out to cut my palm, so I would have a scar to tell myself later. He shook his head. "Don't consecrate your cowardice," he said, almost kindly. "Just keep your feet where they belong." I walked past him. He did not move. I do not know if I invented him. I do not know if that matters. On the third night, the forest glittered like black glass, and the stars seemed buried in the dirt at my feet. I stepped over them, and they made the sound of sugar being poured from a bag. The path widened, and the ditch narrowed, and for the first time, I could have stepped across. I could have put one foot in the bracken and stayed on the path with the other, and reached down with my hand and put it on a shoulder and said, "Up then." I could have played at helping. The ditch was full of shapes then. They were stacked and piled and knotted upon each other. Arms and necks and hair. Some of them were just hair. Faces like masks thrown up on a shelf. Eyes looked at me with love. Eyes looked at me with hate. A man with no lips smiled. A child put her hand to her mouth and looked ashamed. "Please," one said. A woman with a ring sunk so deep the finger looked swallowed by it. "I was all right until I wasn't." "Me too," said a man whose voice was still drunk after decades. "I just took a step." "You only have to take one step," a second said helpfully. "You can lean back to the path. Just one step. Save me. Save one of us. Be better." They were close enough to touch. I held my arms to my sides. My shoulders ached with the holding. I put my teeth into the pebble until my jaw screamed. "You have my name," a voice said. It was near my ear. It was quiet and patient, and it did not beg. "Give it back." "I don't," I said, stupid as it sounded, for I had my own name, and no part of it was borrowed. "You will," the voice said. "You will give me your name so I can walk out and be you." I walked. I do not know for sure what I stepped on at one point. It gave under me and then did not. I kept my eyes on the ruts. I kept my eyes on the places dry enough to be honest. I kept my head up enough not to put my face in the bramble like a drunk. At dawn, I came to a place where something had bled. The dirt was red. The smell was a hot horse. I put my hand to a tree to steady myself, and the bark came away in a long strip, and beneath it was flesh. The flesh moved. It had its own breath. There were words in it like worms. They made a sentence. It read, "Do not help them." Then a second sentence beneath, like it had grown new. It read, "Or do and be them." "I know," I said. "Do you?" said a voice. "Shut up," I said, because sometimes that's all you can say and have it be true. I think it was midday when I heard Ruth's voice again. I am ashamed of this part, and I will tell it anyway. The voice did not come from the ditch. It came from the path ahead. It came around a turn, and it was her, and she was there. And she was laughing and holding a popsicle, and she had her hair again. And I ran. She was 10. She did not step out of the way with an apology to let me pass. She held out her hand, and I took it. And even the dead know what it is to take your sister's hand again. "Cal," she said, "come on." "It's not you," I said, but I said it like a man who has lied to keep himself alive. "It is," she said. You said not to lie when you looked a thing in the face. We walked 3 steps in that dream, and then she looked up, and her eyes were all pupil and the white had gone. You left me, she said, and something put its hand inside my chest and held my heart still. She let me go, and I stumbled and came back to myself, and she was not there, and the path was what it had been, and my hands shook like an old man's. I sank down on my knees. My knees bled through my jeans, and the blood looked like water on that dry earth. Jesus, I said. You don't come here, something said from the ditch. It did not sound unkind. By the time I saw the arch, I knew if I had to go one more step, I would go to my knees and crawl. It stood, all made of limbs and old fence wire and deer rack. A gate. It had a bell hung on it that was not a bell. A hubcap. The path ran under it like a tongue. On the other side, I could see day in a different color. The sound off the ditch was a song without pattern now, and it rolled over me like surf. Cal? Said a voice behind me, deep and human and mine. I do not mean it sounded like me. I mean it was mine. It was the voice that told me when to leave and when to stay, when to hide and when to hold. It broke in the saying. Son, it said. I turned my head and my father stood in the ditch, and he wore the undershirt he wore under everything, and his chest hair was gray as ash and stuck down with wet. He looked like he had just come up from fixing something under the house. He looked right at me and not through me. His eyes were blue as my own. Get me, he said like he didn't want to wake anyone. Come on, 2 hands, that's it. I can't, I said. He nodded like a man nods when told a thing he regards as dumb but will allow. You can, he said. You're the strongest man I know, and that ain't saying much, but it's true. I can't, I said again, and I could not stand it. I'm not asking for you to be good, he said. I'm asking for your back for 5 seconds. Then you can lie about it for the rest of your life. He smiled, and it was that little corner smile he did when something pleased him that he didn't want to show pleased him. He said, I will be proud to take your place. I said a word I had not said since he died, and it wasn't his name. Then I turned away. I put my face into the white of the path. I walked under the arch. The bell that was not a bell rang with a sound like metal and cold. I did not look back. When I came out, I did not know that I had come out. The trees did not change. The light did. It came down honest. The ditch went shallow. The voices did not stop. They do not stop. You will go home and they will come with you like a chorus caught in your shirt. You will get to your road. You will get to your door. You will get to your bed, and if you listen, you will hear them in the register like something wrong with the heat. All you can do is fill your life with a different sound, and it will never be big enough. My legs carried me. The path rolled out thin as string, and then it widened into the soft leaf mold I knew from boyhood, with pill bugs and spider web and that smell of green rot. At the line of trees, I stopped. I turned. The woods stood as they always had. The cut into them was just darkness. I put my hand to my mouth and took out the pebble and looked at it, and it was white now. It worked, I said out loud to no one. It worked, someone answered from the ditch, and laughed. I walked home without stopping, though my feet were swollen and rawshod, and a man in a pickup slowed and said, "You want to ride?" And I said, "No, thank you," because the path teaches you to be careful with answering anything. When I opened the door, my mother stood, and then she was on me, and her hands were small and hard on my face. "Don't you ever leave me to guess in my old age," she said, crying. "You wicked boy." "I know," I said. She stepped back and looked at me, and then went to Ruth's room without a word, and I went after her. Ruth sat propped up in her bed, and there was color in her face like dawn. Her eyes were bright. A glass of water sat by her hand, and it was cloudy in a way that made no sense. And in the bottom of it was a curl of something black, like a hair or a worm. She smiled like the sun had been let in. I fell against the doorway, and the strength went out of me like a plugged tub, and I put my face in my hands and laughed and cried, because that is what you do when you walk that path. "You look like hell," she said. "You look all right," I said. "I woke up to something," she said, and her voice went thin and she shuddered. "It put its hand in my throat and took out something that did not belong to me. It said your name, Cal. It said it with love." "She's running a fever," my mother said sharply, as if I could attend to that with a wrench. "She needs broth." "I need pancakes," Ruth said, and she laughed and then did not. I sat that afternoon and watched her breathe. Every time her chest rose, I counted and did not mean to. Every time it fell, I breathed with it, like I could go in and out of her and keep her going with mine. She slept and woke and slept, and in the cusps, she looked at me like she was trying to see through me to what I had done. She didn't say thank you, and it was a kindness. A day went, 2. The doctor came and marveled, and used all the words that meant he did not know. "Remission," he said. "Spontaneous." He said he had seen it once, twice. He kept saying the words until they felt small enough for him to pocket. Ruth ate and walked, and in the mirror, she put her hand to her hair the way women always do, and now made sense to do again. "It worked," she said that third day. We were on the porch, and the light on the fields was like everything had been washed. "You did it." "Don't ever say that to me," I said. "What do you want me to say?" "Say you're better," I said. "Say it to yourself. Leave me out." She looked at me in a new way then. The way you look at a man on a bridge rail. "What did you see out there?" she said. "The truth," I said, and she snorted like I had trained with a guru. "You've always been dramatic," she said. "Promise me something," I said. "All right. If you ever hear anything in your room at night that asks you for help, you call me instead. You don't reach your hand out. Not to a shadow, not to a sick person, not even to your own breath if it sounds wrong. Will you promise?" She laughed, and then she saw I had tears standing in my eyes. "I promise," she said, quiet. At night, I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling, and the voices came. Not loud, not as bad as the path. They were learned now. The edges of them had been ground down by time in that ditch. "Help me," they said. "I'm under. Pull. I'm right here." They said my name so soft, I thought it was in my own thoughts. I turned on the fan. I turned on the TV. I went outside and stood in the driveway and looked at the line of trees, and it looked at me. Mom came out and stood with me. She was the shape of a woman who had raised 2 children and buried a husband and kept the dead man's hands off of her. She put her hand low on my back, the way she had when I was little and used to run fevers. "You're back," she said. "I don't think I am." "You're back enough," she said. After a while, she said, "I went when you were 13. I turned my head and looked at her. She kept looking at the trees. "For your father?" "For you," she said. "You were sick that spring. With pneumonia. You stopped making any sense. It wasn't any noble act. I was 26 and I did not want a dead boy in my house, and that is the truth. I heard the cries and I did not answer. It worked." She took a breath and it shuddered some. "You've been hearing them since you were 13. You just didn't know what they were. There's a denseness that comes off the path when it has your house in it. Like humidity that never burns out. The voices grab at it. They got their hands in my dress every time I bent down to tie a shoe. Does that sound crazy?" "No," I said. She nodded. "I told you about the rule because I am not raising a child who thinks compassion is always a door you open. Some doors go both ways." After a moment, she said, "Do not be cruel. The first thing men do when they have to step hard is they make stepping hard a virtue. It ain't. It's just stepping hard." "I know." "Do you?" she said, almost laughing. A year has gone by. I wrote this because I know some of you walk too. I know because I see you. You are the ones who sit with your hands around a coffee cup like it is a throat. You go quiet when somebody tells a story that isn't theirs to tell, and you leave before the funny part, because you've heard funnier from a mouth in the dirt. You look at the ground a lot. You find stones and you keep them because they hold the shape of your mouth. There are men who come from that path who make a church of their refusal to help. They become hard like old bread, and they think hardness is clean. It is not. It is just hard. Do not be like them. These are men who go back and don't come home because they think they missed a thing, or they think they can undo a thing, or they think they can bring a second person through on their back. They can't. If you even imagine you will, do not go. If you walk, you will change. You will be scarred in whatever part of you did not have a scar. You'll hear your name in 100 hurting ways, and the sound will never go out of your head. Sometimes, when Ruth laughs, I hear a faint echo of crying layered under it. And it is not really there, and I know that. And if you tell me to see someone about it, I will tell you where to go. She is alive. She plants hollyhocks. She goes to the movies with a girl I always knew she liked and who liked her, and they think I don't know. I see Ellie at the diner, and he doesn't drink, and he has a new dog, and the dog is a good dog. I see Doss watching trains, and he wears earplugs sometimes, and he smiles when the cars go by, and he waves like a boy because the sound of a thing passing is a kind of blankness he can stand in and not be touched by what's behind it. I keep a stone in my pocket, and sometimes I put it in my mouth when the voices are loud. I do not answer calls for help if they come from the trees. I have trouble in grocery stores when people say excuse me and put a hand on my arm. I have trouble when I pass a ditch with standing water. You could say a man ought to be over a thing after a year. You would be wrong. Some things are not for getting over. You learn to carry them without bowing. You learn to let them sit at the end of the table and not talk much. Sometimes, it calls me by my full name from the edge of the yard, and I think it was a deer, and I go to the door and I stand there with the knob in my hand and I say nothing. I listen, and the night says help me in 1,000 different voices at once, and I close the door. I put my forehead to the wood and I stand there until I cannot remember why I did. I go back to bed. I dream a thing is unlacing itself and stepping out, and it smiles at me with my father's smile and my own, and it says, "I am proud, son," and my heart is a fish again. I wake and Ruth is laughing at something on her phone down the hall, and the laugh fills the house, and it is a sound that pushes the ditch back 10 feet, 20, but not enough. Never enough. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed today's story. This one was written by an author, Ryan Labbe, also known as SolarDRXPP1 on Reddit. Bit of a mouthful, but I will include it in the description below as well. Today's author has a book out on Amazon. It's titled The Knock. They look like us, they talk like us, they aren't us. And it's available on Amazon. I'll include a link in the description below. This author, I've done a few of their stories on the channel. The alien abduction story, some people might remember. The investigator who comes into town to investigate the missing kids who are disappearing in the forest. A few other stories, the desert detective story, and a couple other ones. This author has a very different kind of writing style than the norm. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I personally like it. This particular story, a lot of themes of grief and loss and, you know, a sick family member, kind of what you would do to save a family member who you love if they're sick or dying. Something I think a lot of us can relate to. I know I've had my run-ins with family members being sick and dying, and yeah, you want to do anything you possibly can to save them, and yeah, it's a tough topic to talk about, but I think this author approached it in a really good way with the story, talking about the path that you can walk, and you kind of have to ignore these other people crying for help on the side of the road, these people that you know and love. And if you want to have your wish granted and have, you know, the person you want saved to be saved, then you have to kind of walk past all of these other people who are dying and suffering to get there. So I'm sure there's some deeper meaning to this that I'm not yet grasping, that I will probably get in a few more days, but I thought this one was really good. I thought it had some really good ideas, some really good scary imagery. The sister on the bridge eating the mouthful of the rotting wood, I thought was really visceral and a very scary imagery. You hear this sort of this horror theme sometimes of the voices who call out from the woods, and they call in voices that are familiar. And, you know, you better not listen to them. You better not go follow them. Otherwise, bad things will happen. So I thought this touched on that, but in a very unique and different way than the typical creepypasta story about the voices in the woods. I've done my fair share of those stories as well, and I've read quite a few of them on the channel. The story by G-Trip14, Ryan Major, the paranormal park ranger story comes to mind. A lot of other stories as well that have that particular trope. But yeah, I thought this one was very, very different and unusual. Had a good overall storyline to it. I wanted to mention quickly, if you are watching this on Spotify, or if you do follow the channel on Spotify, hitting the follow button really does help out a lot. Currently, like, just above 3,000 followers, I think. on Spotify. And yeah, still trying to grow the Spotify channel and keep it growing. Right now, I'm posting there all of the current stories that are coming out, as well as older stories. Particularly, I'm doing a lot of the longer stories. I'm posting those every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on Spotify. So basically, like 6 days a week, there's stuff coming up on Spotify, and it's all remastered with new music and new graphics. So hopefully you guys will check that out. Please give a follow if you're listening on Spotify. It really does help out a lot. If you can leave a review, also that's hugely helpful. The Hollow's End book sales are looking really good. I really appreciate everybody who's left a positive review on Amazon. Again, if you can leave an unbiased review, it really does help out a lot with Amazon rankings and with getting the book seen out there. And I will be starting on the Hollow's End audiobook fairly soon as well. So should have more news about that in the coming days, and as well about the Terrace of the Forest audiobook. That should be coming out in fairly soon as well. All right, that's about all I have for today. Should be back on Friday with a new video for you guys. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you Friday.